All right, welcome to the show. Oklahoma City Real Estate Show here with Meg Sayler, who is the Ward 6 councilwoman for the last decade, watching the city transform from the impoverished districts to one of the number one districts in Oklahoma, if not in the Midwest, the Plaza district, Gatewood, Linwood, Crestwood, Heritage Hills. A lot of the top neighborhoods in Oklahoma City are in Ward 6. And her reign coming to an end 2019 after 10 years and new elections coming up. A lot of good names running for that. Meg, thanks for coming on the show today. I hope that we can talk about something that's been very precious to your heart, and that's the transformation of Oklahoma City over the last 10 years.
Landon, thank you so much for having me here this morning. I really appreciate the opportunity. And when you say decade, I can hardly believe it. It just doesn't seem possible that it's been 10 years, but it indeed has.
That's really amazing. So when you started this in 2008, did you think you were going to be there for that long, or did you kind of think, oh, I'll get involved and see what happens, or how did that come about?
Well, I'd begin by saying I didn't think I was going to be there at all. This really wasn't part of a plan. It was another piece of serendipity that's kind of happened in my life and has provided a great journey. But I was preceded in this office by Ann Simek, who held the seat for 13 years. Mm-hmm. She did a fabulous job. But her son had always dreamed of becoming a firefighter. And when he became an Oklahoma City firefighter, she resigned from her position. And so it left a 2.5-year unexpired term available. And I had some folks, call and check in with me. I had worked with the city in lots of different capacities. I served for 10 years again on the Citizens Committee for Community Development Block Grant Funds. And, I was the founding board chair of Automobile Alley, and so I'd worked really closely with Public Works Department and the city manager's office and council staff. And, Debbie Martin has been a friend of mine forever, and so I'd worked closely with the city, but I hadn't ever thought about this next step. And, as I tell the story, my dear friends Clayton and Marnie Taylor took me to a football game in Stillwater and had me hotboxed in the car for 45 minutes on the way up and 45 minutes on the way back. And, we just sort of chatted around the idea that this job is not a political job, it's community service. And so what I had been doing previously was in the same vein. It was just an opportunity to take this to a higher level and be engaged with your citizens at a different level. And so, given that it was 2.5 years, I sort of thought, this is the perfect window. If I love it, that's awesome. If I don't love it, anybody can do anything for 2.5 years. So that was kind of how I decided to jump in, and I did love it, and I've stuck it out for 10.5.
For those that may not understand what the position is, could you briefly describe kind of what that role does and what position it plays in Oklahoma City?
Sure. Serving on the city council, along with the school board, I would add, are the closest, thing you can be to working with people on a day-to-day basis. And everything we do, Landon, I think affects people's quality of life. So, the issues that we deal with, there are 8 of us on the city council, just so people understand, in case our form of government is unclear to people. We have what's called a weak mayor, a strong city manager form of government, so that the city council actually has just 3 categories of employee. We hire the city manager, which is looming on our agenda here in the next couple of weeks, as Jim Couch has announced his retirement.
After it was like 18 years?
18 years.
Yeah.
He is the longest serving city manager of a major city of anywhere in the country.
Wow.
And talk about big shoes to fill.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's really going to be a transition. Change is difficult, I think, for everybody, but it's also an exciting opportunity. So we'll be working on that. But so we also hire the city auditor and we hire the municipal councilor. But those are our employees. The city manager, runs the city just like a COO of a company would. And so the 4,800 city employees fall under the purview of the city manager's office. And so it's a very important role. The council's job is essentially to set policy, direction, guide the city, and then ask the city manager to execute those policies.
So now your constituents, if you will, is everyone that lives, they have to be a homeowner, or can they just reside? They just reside in the district?
Our constituents reside in our districts, and so there are 8 of those. I represent Ward 6, and if you think about it as a square box, it's not exactly, but the boundaries of Ward 6 on the north side start at Northwest 23rd Street. And it's funny because they're the middle of the road. So I have the south side of Northwest 23rd Street. So, you can run along and think about what's there. Mutt's Hot Dogs. I've got the Gold Dome. I've got the new Guatemalan Fabulous Chicken Place on 23rd Street. But I miss the Drake and Cheevers and some of the things just on the north side of the street, the Asian district.
Sure.
On the east side, think about sort of a combination between the railroad tracks and Robinson. And then south, the ward goes all the way for 2 miles as far south as Southwest 59th Street. And on the west boundary is Portland. So it is actually the smallest geographic ward. It's only about 18 square miles. And again, when you think of Oklahoma City, it's 622 square miles. Some of my colleagues' wards are in excess of 100 square miles.
Yeah, it's what, Ward 7 goes all the way to like Luther or something like that?
Absolutely.
It's just crazy.
I mean, it's just, when you drive.
Take all day to drive this whole district.
East or west on I-40, and you see that sign, it says entering Oklahoma City, you're stunned.
I think at one point we were the largest city in the world.
I think we were. I think we may be 3 or 4 now, but we are big, which has implications, and I know we don't have time to talk about all these things, but it has implications for public transit, it has implications for police and fire coverage, ambulance service. The great benefit of living in a city like Oklahoma City is that you can choose any single lifestyle you want and be in the city limits. I live in a downtown high-rise and choose to do that, but I could also choose to live on 160 acres out in the country and have horses and chickens, or whatever you might choose. So we have something for everybody, but that probably means we also can't have everything for everybody all the time, because we are also not very densely populated. So going back to Ward 6,
what is the population of Ward 6?
Well, so we redistrict the wards every 10 years based on the most recent survey data, census data, which will be coming up
I was going to say,
this year.
Yeah, that's great.
So we redistricted, if that's a word, 10 years ago.
It's a word on this show.
There you go. We're going to claim it as a word
right.
on this show. So we did look at that, and by charter, we are each required to represent an equal amount of population with a plus or minus 2% over the median. So we each, in round numbers, we each represent about 72,000 people.
Wow.
In our individual wards.
That's a lot of voices.
It's a lot of voices, and we hear from a lot of voices. I've never heard from anybody that they hadn't been able to reach me or hadn't been able to reach out. The world has changed a lot, and technology makes the connection so much simpler. My email address is ward6@okc.gov. I get a lot of emails every single day. Some of them super simple, so that staff can direct it if it's a code enforcement complaint or a trash not pickup or a pothole in the neighborhood. parenthetically, which you can also do on your
Graffiti.
phone with OKC
Sure.
Connect. There's a really easy way to report those. But, if you want it to come to a council office, those things can be quickly directed to the right staff department. Things that require, more complicated thought or a deeper process, talking about, a challenge that might require a new ordinance or whatever, those things get to me on a regular basis.
Now, when you think back, I know you've got a large span to try to remember through, but are there some high points in that 10-year where you think, gosh, I love what I'm doing? This is an instrumental moment.
Honestly, almost every day I love what I'm doing. The simple thing would be to say, every time I get to help a citizen solve a problem, that's a high point. I mean, it really, like most of our jobs, when you get to solve a problem, create a solution, help somebody maneuver something that was difficult, you develop a sense of accomplishment about that, so it feels good. But I have truly been incredibly fortunate to have been involved at this level at the city from the inception of the MAPS 3 program through to, every project has been bid, every project's under construction. And that actually played a big role in my decision to not run for re-election. I felt as if we have kind of taken a package, we've wrapped a bow around it, and
Seeing it to completion.
Seeing it through. And, I felt once the convention center bid had come in and it was so significantly under budget, we knew
that's beautiful.
that we could complete the project the way we'd promised. We knew that we had probably some additional funding to help enhance some of the projects that could use a little additional boost to them. And then we got closer to the budget process. We financially are very stable. We've got great reserves in a rainy day fund. We don't call it that, but we've got good reserves. We've been conservative in the way we've managed money, and when we were presented the budget this year, we were finally able to find the dollars to provide Sunday bus service. And to me, that was sort of the icing on the cake. And wrapping that package and tying it up with a bow, and then realizing that we're now back to a planning phase. Mayor Holt has put out a call for ideas.
And we ran that call on the website
Good,
as well. Yeah.
Great. So, my personal opinion about the way I like to do things is I didn't want to be involved in planning again for something that I probably wouldn't see through to execution. And so the timing just seemed right.
It's a change of the guards.
It is.
Yeah.
And Lynn, you're seeing it, across the board, whether it's corporate leadership or city leadership. We are in the midst of one of those gigantic generational changes. It's time for this young 40-something, 30-something group to begin to step up and take on these roles. And they're smart, they're well-groomed, they're prepared, and it's time for the chance. None of us are going away. I do want to make that pretty clear.
Sure.
And there's lots of opportunity to be involved. One doesn't have to do that from an elected seat.
That is a great point. Most of the big change that's occurred in Oklahoma City has come from volunteers, whether it's through civic movements or school board, like you talk about. Speaking on education, so we recently talked with Nathaniel Harding, who is a possible candidate for elections in February. Or he is a candidate.
He's an announced candidate for this Ward 6 seat.
And he had some goals and plans with education, but those are difficult questions to answer right now. What do you think is the future, let's say the short term 3 to 5 years for education in Ward 6, who, we lose a lot of deals to families that want to have the higher rated schools. And so they love the homes, which we have some of the most incredible homes in the world in Ward 6. When you talk about 1930s charm, it is just... magazines. Our photo shoots, we could put them on magazines in Paris and people would be stunned. But the schools are a limiting factor. How long is that going to be till we can get those great school ratings up to the 7s and the 8s and the 9s? What kind of time frame is that?
Well, let's talk about structure to start with, because we also have an elected school board who are directly responsible for oversight of the school districts. So the role that the city council, if you will, plays in that is much more subtle than, day-to-day management. There is a superintendent of the schools who is doing a fantastic job. As I said, we have an elected school board who make the same kinds of policy decisions for the school district that we make for the city as a whole. Your listeners may remember that we didn't call it MAPS 2 exactly, but the second MAPS that the voters approved the penny sales tax for under the reign of Mayor Humphreys was called MAPS for Kids. And it raised about $580 million that went directly into capital improvements. And that's what our penny is for, capital improvements at the schools. So we were able to build new or substantially remodel and refurbish every single school in the I-89 school district, which is the Oklahoma City urban district, and raised another, I think, $120 or $130 million for the 23 other school districts within Oklahoma City limits. Your readers may think, or listeners may think, I'm making a mistake, but there are 24 independent school districts inside Oklahoma City limits, which in and of itself makes the situation extremely complex to manage. Now, we have fantastic schools throughout Oklahoma City. And, you look at an organization like the Foundation for Oklahoma City Public Schools, run by Mary Malone, that is doing great work supporting the efforts of the teachers. We have models that are working incredibly well. We've got KIPP School. We've got John Rex School, which happens to be in Ward 6, which is a sort of hybrid charter school. We've got Wilson Elementary School in Ward 6. We've got Gatewood. We've got Linwood, the Linwood Lions, as you mentioned. Teachers every day in the classroom are doing great work. But what it's going to take to move that needle, as you asked,
right,
it takes the community as a whole. And, whether or not you have a child in the Oklahoma City public school system, you need to know that those kids are, in fact, our future. And they need our help. They need us as mentors. They need us in a classroom on a Saturday painting the walls or pulling the weeds, or, there are just tons of opportunities to participate.
So the great school rating, and the reason why I bring that up is because when somebody's moving to Oklahoma City, whether you agree with Zillow or not, the Zillow group who owns nakedhomes.com, Trulia, Zillow.com, a lot of people don't realize Trulia and Zillow are the same ownership. It's all part of the Zillow Group, which is a $2 billion company who's growing every day. I would say 90% of our business and growing every day, it feels like, starts their search on Zillow.com. So one of the things they do is they give a school rating score, right? And which is from a company called Great Schools. You can go to greatschools.org and they tell how they do that. And it's 50% test scores and then 50% funding and rating. And they come up with that score. Well, Deer Creek and Edmond schools consistently get that 8 and that 9, whereas Oklahoma City is like in the 3s, And so I guess for a short answer for those that are listening that are going, how do I interpret that? You're saying that this is a great school, but these ratings are off. So is it that it just takes time to get these test scores up, and the test score really isn't a full picture of the actual education the child is receiving? I mean, is it class percentage size? I mean, how do we rate a school effectively?
Yeah, you're getting me. You're getting me out of my wheelhouse, because we don't deal with that on a day-to-day basis. I can confirm with you, based on the zoning cases that we see before the council every Tuesday, that a tremendous amount of the new development that's happening in the city is happening around the perimeters where the students are eligible for the other school districts. there is a perception that our inner city schools may not be up to standard. I think your comment about the whole story not being in the testing is incredibly true, but I am neither an educator nor, am I involved on a day-to-day basis in the school system. I have the benefit of working very closely with the foundation and some of the programming that's, reflecting on great things that are happening in the schools. I was a reading buddy for 4 years down at Heronville Elementary School, which is one of my heavily Hispanic-based schools. And, the kids are just delightful, and they're working so hard every day. And that's another interesting thing, just for your listeners, perhaps, to know about Ward 6. I really didn't talk about the demographics, but it is exactly 50-50, 50% Hispanic and 50% Caucasian. So in representing that ward, I'm really focused on different issues in different parts of our community.
Sure.
And you talked about neighborhoods. I just want to put in a plug. We talked about neighborhoods, but Ward 6 has a portion of Capitol Hill, which is beginning to boom. I think we're really beginning to see exciting things happening in South Oklahoma City, and a number of the projects that we've all been focused on are building those bridges.
I think Scissortail Park will have a huge impact on that, with Skydance Bridge being a gateway to connecting culture.
Absolutely.
I think it will be a pedestrian pathway to uniting our city. Right now, that very few. If you're driving along I-40, you don't see very many people walking along that bridge, and that will change now.
We've already seen that happen with the Myriad Gardens. I am there almost every single day, and in the evenings, as you walk through, there are so many families that gather there, and it's everything from celebrating quinceañeras, as many flowers as you see these blooming young girls in their beautiful bright colored tulle dresses